Okay, Maestro, hit it.
I'm Wally Boat. I didn't know you knew Mickey Mouse.
Museum of the Weird.
The dawn of a new era.
Just a dream away.
Hello and welcome to the Disney Record Guy Show, where we regularly explore Disney history to respark the magic that the House of Mouse has brought us for more than 100 years. I'm Disney record collector and amateur Disney historian Josiah, and I am beyond thrilled today as I am joined by someone who really does deserve to be a Disney legend. Imagineer, sculptor, and puppeteer. She's a trifecta right there, Terri Hardin. Terri, I'm truly honored to have you with me today.
It's an honor to be with you, Josiah.
I would like to start from the beginning. Obviously, you have a huge career with the Disney company, the Jim Henson Company. You mentioned in your book that back in the 80s, you tried again and again to get into Imagineering. And then you finally felt when your mom had gotten into Imagineering that you finally had an in that would kind of help you get into the door. What kind of work did your mom do for Imagineering?
Well, and the funny thing about this whole thing is that my mother was a word processor. And first of all, let's clarify for you and your listeners and your viewers that I am almost 65 years old. So you may not know if you're young, younger than 65 or even younger than 40, what a word processor is. But back in the day, in the olden days, there were no computers and there were no iPhones and there was no internet. There was nothing like that. So when computers came on the scene, they needed people to actually figure out how to do documents on the IBM computers because they were so expensive, so massive. And now we were just getting on the road to the personal computer. So my mom was a word processor. She would process documents for the executives at various companies. And Disney found her and invited her to be part of their team at Imagineering.
For the sake of clarifying your personal timeline, because you did so much through your career, around the time you started with Disney is about the time that you started with the Jim Henson Company as well. Is that correct?
Well, I started with, I met Jim Henson in 1982, and then I was hired by Disney Imagineering for the first time in 1987. And so about 5 years difference. And then I think it was like, well, Jim said he was coming. He called me in 89 and told me he was coming to audition people for his Muppet 3D theater. So yeah, almost simultaneously, a few years here and a few years there. Gotcha. So, but when my mother was on the scene, she found out they were looking for the voice of Figment, and she had me create a tape. And I was one of the top 3 children at that time, young people at that time, to audition for Figment and to get selected, because at the time, in quotes, Disney decided that they wanted, they didn't want an actor. So they were asking kids. I think it was about 14 at the time. Oh, and wow. So I did the voice of Figment. I love dragons. So I did the voice of Figment, and they flew us down to Florida, and we were in the recording booths and everything. And we all got to audition for Figment. But then, of course, as you know, Billy Barty, the non-actor, got the part.
See, I had no idea that you had auditioned for Figment. That's incredible, because so obviously going through a lot of the Disney history, I've watched back a lot of old interviews with people, and I've seen probably 10 of yours, because there's always little bits that I'm getting. I'm like, oh, she talks about this, but not that part. And there's such an incredible career there. And I had no idea about that aspect with Figment. So that is such a cool thing to find out just from this alone. Obviously we're going to get into dragons later, yes, because we have to talk about about that. But before we get into the dragons, how did you finally end up getting into Imagineering?
Well, it wasn't an easy path, as you probably read in the book, and I am in the process of redoing that book, but it wasn't an easy path. My mother, when she was working at Imagineering, said there was this little blue card that you could get when someone was an employee already employed at Disney. Then they would put this blue card on your application, and that would allow you to go into an interview. but that didn't work. They wouldn't interview me, whatever the reason. Application after application after application. I have so many rejection letters from what I felt was that stupid mouse. You're not worthy. Never mind. No, thank you. And you were just like, grr. So I just kept applying. I kept redoing my resume and everything. Meanwhile, I'm working for the film industry. I'm building costumes for my friends and my family. I'm creating puppets. I'm doing all this kind of creative stuff, but Disney is just not interested. So I think after enough rejection letters to wallpaper my house here, I decided to put it aside. I decided to set it aside and let it go for a while. So sometimes when you want something very, very much, sometimes it's good to step away from it for a while, and then maybe something will be revealed to you that you didn't think of doing. So this is what happened to me. And I started creating characters for a little company called Shaftins Incorporated that does McGruff the Crime Dog, Smokey the Bear. What else do? They do a lot of walk around characters for Universal, walk around characters for SeaWorld, et cetera, et cetera. And I was sculpting the heads for those characters. And he was a friend of mine. We had done a puppet show way back when I was only 18 years old. And so he knew that I could sculpt. And so he brought me in to sculpt for him. And while I was sculpting a water drop for Los Angeles County's Water and Power, which was a walk around water drop that I guess talked to you about, I don't know, I'm in California, so maybe they were talking about the conservation of water or the benefits of water. But anyway, it was a water drop that a person wore. And a guy walked in and he said, "Terri, what are you doing here?" And he was a friend of mine. And I said, "Oh, I'm, working with my friend and waiting for Disney to get a clue." And he laughed. And he said, "Well, I'm working at Disney right now, painting sets. I'll put in a good word for you." And that's when the wheels started turning again. So as you see, I stepped back for a while and in walks this amazing person who says, "Let me see if I can put in a good word." And things suddenly started to get rolling.
And then what are some of the attractions that you worked with as an Imagineer when you finally did get that foot in the door there?
Well, as an Imagineer, so it took 9 interviews in 3 months to get me to be hired, which was absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, I 100% agree.
I'm sitting there thinking to myself, you have to be kidding me. This is crazy. Of course, I looked a little different than I do now. I looked like this. I'll show you what I looked like. I look like this. So my hair, I'm mixed races. I'm half black, half white. And this is the result. My hair is a result of that. So I was bullied because of my hair, but here I am on the lawn of the Chastain building, Walt Disney Imagineering, and I'm taking a break with my friend as we are getting ready to work on Disneyland Paris. So in Disneyland Paris, come back to me, Disneyland Paris was the big production they were trying to do. And as they're trying to get me in, Disney can often have communication issues. So if you're applying to Imagineering back in those days, the company that wanted to bring me on, the group, was a portion in Imagineering that kept saying, "Where is she? Where is she? Where is she?" I didn't know this because HR was saying, "One more interview, one more interview, one more interview." They looked at my portfolio and then they interviewed me again. And can you do this? And can you do that? Long story short, I was brought in to build this attraction, which is Big Thunder. Whoops. Let's not put me up there. Let's put me down here. Big Thunder Paris. So Big Thunder Paris was the first thing I was brought on to do. And I did this arch right here. So that was my big thing to do, was to do this arch. And in the beginning, it wasn't easy. I had a little challenge with my partner there, but we ironed it out. And that was my first piece that I did for Imagineering. And then I did, let me see if I can show you what else I did here. No, that's puppets. And then, so then from there, because I had worked with this person that was kind of a challenge to work with. And now you're going to find all different personalities in Imagineering. I found out about a project that was very close to my heart. And I said, I get to pick the next project. If I'm going to work with this fella, make things work so we can get the job done, I want to pick my next project for Imagineering. And they said, do you have any idea what you want to do? And I said, I don't know what's out there, what's possible, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just looking, there it is. And then I ended up doing this one right here, which is the Dragon's Lair in Paris. So that's my favorite. That's my child. But it was originally not designed to move. It was going to be a stone dragon in the bottom of the castle that people, when they go past. So like the hub at Disneyland, I can't really talk about a hub at Walt Disney World because I'm trying to remember if Walt Disney World really has a hub. I don't remember Disney. It just doesn't seem to be as front of mind. But the idea is when you go into the different lands, you have this area where you're crisscrossing through. So at Disneyland, you're looking at Mickey and Walt. In this case, because Paris snows and rains, they wanted the crisscrossing to happen underneath the castle. Since then, it's changed. They've done a few alterations because now people sometimes go to Disneyland Paris and completely miss the dragon. So it's not a thoroughfare.
Tony Baxter, you talk about in your book, he really took a leap of faith on you after you gave a passionate speech about the animatronic being a still figure, that you were like, yes, absolutely not. I recall reading. Can you tell me a little bit about that moment with Tony Baxter?
So I go to my supervisor and I said, I want to do Dragon's Lair. And he says, it's just a stone dragon. And I go, yeah, that's the problem. Okay. We're not Universal. We're not Magic Mountain. We're Disneyland. And Disneyland does not do a stone dragon that people walk by that's not living, breathing, and moving. And my supervisor said, well, you're preaching to the choir here, Terri. I can't do anything about it. And I go, well, who can? Tell me who can. And they said, this guy's name is Tony Baxter. All right, well, who is this Tony Baxter? Where is this Tony Baxter? How do I talk to this Tony Baxter? And he says, he's the vice president of Imagineering. And I said, well, let's get him down here. And my supervisor says, you don't just get Tony Baxter down here. Well, tell me where he is. I'll go up and see him. No, you don't just go up and see him, Terri. And I said, well, I need to talk to him. So what do we do? And my supervisor said, all right. I can see you're not going to let this rest. So if I work out a meeting between you and Tony down here so you can make your pitch, can you keep it to 20 minutes? And I was like, oh, and you're going to find out I'm a talker, guys. So I had to really think about this. How could I keep in 20 minutes how important it was to have a living, breathing dragon underneath the Paris castle? So I said yes. And even if I thought I couldn't do it, honestly, and even if you think you can't do it, the answer is yes. So I said yes. So I did some sketches and I put things together, not sure that Tony was even going to show up, but soon I got the message that Tony was going to come down and hear my pitch. So I was ready. I had a smock that I had illustrated. I had drawn dragons on because remember, I love dragons. So I had a dragon on my smock. I had clothing. I had illustrated that dragons. I had sketched out what my thought was about the cavern, what the dragon would do, how the dragon would work. And I was all set. And Tony came in with an entourage, meaning 8 to 10 people who were to see to his every need. And so person number one made sure he had a chair that he was comfortable. And maybe 2 or 3 people were taking notes. And maybe a couple people were taking pictures. Maybe even someone was recording it in some way so that Tony could view it later. And so they sat Tony down. I was next to a small easel, but I looked like I was getting ready to do a sprint for the Olympics. So I was like this, ready to go. And he looked up and he saw me like this, and I'm kind of vibrating, and he looked like, what are you doing? And I said, you're Tony Baxter, right? And he said, yes. And he said, you're Terri Hardin. And I said, yes. And he then I'm still there. And he's like, okay. And I said, say go. And he said, what? And I said, say go. And he says, okay, go. And I said, so here it is. Here's the idea. Here's what I got to do. Giant dragon, living dragon, not stone dragon. We're not Disney. We're Disney. We're not Magic Mountain. We're not Universal. We have to have the stone dragon. We have to, no stone dragon. It has to be living, breathing. Roar, I have this idea. Cattail goes like this. The head's down here, comes up here, roar, roar. All this stuff. He goes, wait, stop. And I'm like, and I go, Mr. Baxter, I only have 15 more minutes. Come on, let's go. And he's like, this. He says, oh, give me a minute. Okay, Terri. If I give you more time, will you slow down and walk me through your presentation? And I said, yes, of course. So I walked him through the whole thing and I showed him everything that I had in mind for the dragon underneath the castle. And he sat back and he said, okay, all right, we'll do it on one condition. And I said, what's that? And he said, you are going to design it. And I went, oh. Now I had never designed an attraction in my life. Okay. I had built props and trees for various films throughout the industry. I had created trees for maybe a Gotham City, or I had sculpted, giant statues for something else, but I had never designed an entire attraction. And I said, okay, again, the goal is when you want to do something is jump through that door of opportunity and figure it out as you go along, which is exactly what I was going to do. And because I loved it so much, you now have a Dragon's Lair in Paris. And Paris, the Parisians, the French, really were angry about Disney going into France. They didn't want it there. It's about an hour outside of the city, and it's on land that people had in their families for 200 years. But that land belonged to the government. So when the government took it back, it left a bad taste in the French palate. So when they finally went in to the park to experience it, their favorite attraction was the Dragon's Lair, even though Dragon's Lair is not technically an attraction. They voted it number one.
But
so
I mean,
I was
so
like,
cool.
And they came to me and they were like, Terri, you're not going to believe this, but the French are going crazy over this dragon underneath the castle. So to this day, if I'm doing a speech and I go all over speaking to little clubs and to young people and to colleges and things, and people are always asking me, how do you become an Imagineer, et cetera, et cetera. I say, first of all, tell me which is the best castle in the world, and everybody will say their castle. So if you're Floridians, you say yours, Disney says theirs, and you go, you're all wrong. The best castle is Paris. And they all go, and you go, because Paris has a living, breathing dragon underneath. And they go, oh.
Yeah, you cannot top that.
Yeah, beat the dragon.
Yeah. That's so crazy. It's such a long history with dragons, though, all the way from Figment all the way, and it just stuck with you through the entire career.
And you get somebody who's a fan of dragons, okay?
Right.
This is what your favorite creature is since you're a tiny child. And so every facet of the attraction I had to come up with. So I decided what you saw when you walked in. I actually built the place where she rests her head, and I'll show you guys again. Put me over in this corner. She rests her head on a stone that is below your standing point. It's about half a foot lower than your feet, so that when she awakens, and it's a she because fans say it's a she, not because I say it's a she, it's because the fans who go say she's definitely a she. And when she raises up and wakes up and roars, your body actually pulls back. You actually have the physical whip in your body to pull back and see her above your head. So all of that is calculated from the tail while sleeping, which I got from a pussycat, to the paw that rustles the water because I saw my dog dreaming, probably chasing a squirrel or something. So I did the animation while she's sleeping, and the chuffing of the smoke, and all of this was the full idea of what is your dragon doing sleeping, what is your dragon doing waking, and then so on and so forth. So it's a whole experience when you see the dragon. It's not just, good night,
That is so fascinating. I have not been to Disneyland Paris yet, but I really, really want to go. It is up there on the list.
Well, now you know about the dragon, so you won't miss it.
So that is my top priority.
It's funny that they miss it, but it's under Merlin's Magic Shop, which has kind of been repurposed. And this is what happens when you're Imagineer. You have your design of what the park's going to look like, what the attraction's going to look like, what things are going to do. But once it gets into park hands, the park can change or alter it the way they want. And a lot of times they block off the entrance from Merlin Magic Shop down into the cavern below. If that's blocked, you don't necessarily think to go underneath the castle if you've never been. So for everyone, remember, there's a dragon under the castle, find a way in if that's blocked. They have opened it up a couple of times, which is good. But the idea was that I wanted to make it because you've got a magical being, which is Merlin, and you've got a magical dragon, which is my dragon. And so Merlin would never have captured this dragon. Merlin would have had an agreement with the dragon. And so I really didn't want the collar. But Disney said, we want the collar. So she got the collar. But Paris, Lord love them, they snapped the collar. So the collar is on, but the chain is broken. So now you have the agreement. So maybe the story was she was trapped and he rescued her, Merlin did. And now she sleeps peacefully underneath the castle because they protect each other with their magic. But you can see how I was a young performer. I believe in backstory. And what attracted me to Disney was that Disney just didn't plop a ride in the middle of someplace. There was a story attached. And that's what makes it such a great place to be a part of.